Hi, I'm Lisa Hayden with Channel 6 Central Kentucky TV, community focus on Washington County. Our guest today is Eric Jarboe, who is the
Executive
Director of the New Kentucky Project.
Yes, Executive Director is just a really fancy way of saying he's the only person on staff.
Yeah, Blair can relate to that almost. Yeah. So, but anyway, I wanted to have you on the show because I know recently you were in Springfield and you gave a talk to the Democratic Women's Club. And I know you are a nonpartisan organization, Eric, and so neither Democrat nor Republican or independent, or maybe you would be considered independent,
right?
Because you are, this organization is a new organization, and tell me how you got started.
Sure. I'll touch on the nonpartisan part. We do that. Well, by law, we have to be, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that our membership leans left of center. But we're open to anybody that if you're somebody that's invested in your community and want to see things change or just get better just across the board, then we're open to you. Our motto is we look for new ideas and new leaders from every part of the state, and we want each county to be the most progressive version of itself that it can be. And we know that that looks different in Washington County than it does in Martin County, and it looks different in Martin County than it does in Fayette, Franklin, or anywhere else. But we got started as a response to the election in 2015 here in Kentucky. That it was a low turnout, low idea type of election, that the strategy of both parties, it seemed, was to keep turnout as low as you can, and the Democratic message was no message at all. It was, we're just going to try to discredit then candidate Bevin and now Governor Bevin, and we saw the results of that. And if you were here in Kentucky in 2015, the results of the 2016 election should have been of no surprise, because we saw that exact same thing play out here the year prior. So we got started roughly around that time. We were founded by former State Auditor Adam Edlin and Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio. And the first thing they did was they had a series of meetings with engaged leaders from all across the state, from as far away as Paducah to Pikeville, Covington, Bowling Green, and all the areas in between. Pulled people together and just said, all right, guys, what are we going to do? This type of thing, our political system isn't working. It isn't a way for people to inject themselves without being, it's your turn to go. And I was hired in April, and we officially launched as an organization last August. And ever since then, it's been a whirlwind. We have experienced success that we didn't think would be possible in terms of our internal metrics, such as our email list, our paid members, and just our overall reach. So, I mean, that's, in a nutshell, that's pretty much how we got started.
Now, Eric, so what I'm hearing is that people, with the low turnout in the elections, you didn't feel like people were engaged and involved.
Yes.
And I think I'm seeing that in politics in general, or just in the political system, or even voting, as you said.
Sure.
I don't think people felt like in that election that they were a part of the process.
And I feel like a large percentage of the population didn't feel like they were represented, which, that's on the days of the smoke-filled rooms where there's 2 or 3 people picking out who the candidates are. They've got to go. We can't do that anymore, because that's how you get Governor Bevins. That's how you get President Trumps. And I'm going to probably oppose them a lot when we talk today. I need to be clear. I don't oppose them because they're Republicans. I oppose them because their policies are bad. That taking away promised benefits from public employees, teachers, firefighters, police officers, that's unacceptable stuff. And I think we get that as a result of people not feeling inspired, that, especially on the Democratic side, that you saw a campaign and a candidate that ran on completely discrediting the other candidate and didn't offer a version of, well, in a perfect world, if we got everything that we wanted, this is what it would look like. There wasn't a platform, there wasn't a set of issues that you can look and say, that's what that person is standing for. And people just weren't inspired by that. So what we really want to do is identify people across the state from every community and every walk of life that are doing big, important things. And the example we like to use is the county judge in Harlan, Dan Mosley. And if you haven't heard of him, that's a real shame, and that's another problem that we haven't identified who these people are. But Dan Mosley in Harlan County, Kentucky, is working on a renewable energy project, and he went in and cleaned up the corruption that was happening in the politics down there. And that's an overwhelmingly Republican area, but they still elect Dan Mosley because they like him and he knows he represents the best interests of that community. And those are the people that we're looking for.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that are going to consider the needs of their constituents.
Absolutely.
It seems sometimes now it's the other way around. It's like they're telling us what we want or need or what they're going to do, rather than listening to the concerns of their constituents and what it is we really do actually need.
And I think that's true. Now, the one silver lining that I've seen in this whole pension mess, and that, just to be clear, it is a mess, but the one thing that I've seen is that people, and elected officials in particular, are responding to what their constituents are saying. That you have diehard conservatives come out and saying, I'm not going to vote for this because it's bad for my community. And that's encouraging.
It is.
That's encouraging. But there's still an element that the politicians are setting the agenda, and rather not the people telling them what's important. Now, we're talking about issues that really I don't think the average person cares about.
Yeah.
We want to know, are our services going to be there? Is my retirement going to be there when I go? Is this a place for me to find a job? And can I get a quality education in the area that I came up in? That's what's important to people, and we're looking for the people that follow those values and are looking to get involved for those reasons.
Yeah, yeah, and that I think it's important. I'm going to inject this myself.
Sure.
That our leaders speak up. That they say what they stand for, what they believe in, and what they or that this is I'm here to represent my constituents, and I'm not afraid to stand up to the powers that be.
Well, see, and I'm going to say something here that's probably going to give a lot of people that lean my way a heart attack. That this is an area where I actually have a lot of respect for our governor. That I disagree with him on 100% of what he stands for, but he ran a campaign and he said, this is what I'm going to do when I get in office. This is what I represent. This is what I'm going to stand up for. He didn't wait his turn, and now that he's in office, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. Now, whether that's right or wrong is another discussion, but that's what he's doing. And so people that want to sit around is like, I don't know what the governor's going to do next, like, go listen to his campaign speeches. Like, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you're going to get. So that's why it was so shocking for me when he won. And honestly, I was working the Iowa caucus at the time, so I wasn't here to be able to participate in that election. But I remember sitting back and watching. It's like, you know what you're going to get with Governor Bevin. And to his credit, that's something that I have respect for, that he at least is doing what he said he was going to do. Well,
and one of those, one of the main things was to fix the pension crisis.
Right.
And there were lots of state employees and teachers and, police and firefighters and all whose pensions have been robbed for years to fix, the one crisis after another in state government.
Sure.
And people really did. So, there were being a Democratic state, there were a lot of Democrats who voted Republican for this governor simply because of that pension situation.
And to his credit, he has said that we're going to fix this, and now he's put forward a proposal. The problem is the proposal is garbage. It's no good. And the fact that he's vilifying public teachers, that I have a personal stake in that my mother was a public school teacher, my grandfather was a public school teacher, and now my fiance is a public school teacher. And for him to say that the only reason that they got involved in their profession is for the promise of a pension is absurd. It's like he doesn't remember what school was like. That it takes a calling to be a public school teacher. It's a glorious, thankless job, much like being an elected official, that you're hardly ever praised when you do right, but when you do wrong, everybody knows about it and they're very vocal about it. And for him to vilify an entire profession of dedicated people, and mostly women, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I'm glad, sometimes it takes a situation like this. Obviously, it has taken a situation like this for people, for teachers to speak up and to come forward because, Eric, a lot of people have been apathetic about the political system, as you well know. And that's why I'm excited about your organization.
Yes.
And because you are, getting people motivated. And young people.
Yes, yeah. We like to use the new ideas and new leaders. New doesn't necessarily have to mean young. It's just people that have had ideas, and maybe they haven't felt the need to bring them forward. They haven't been motivated, or they haven't felt the heat themselves. But this pension crisis, again, a silver lining is that it is bringing people forward, and people are speaking out. I know that superintendents and administrators and teachers are all marching down the same path, and if you've followed education policy at all, that never happens. That usually administrators, superintendents, and teachers are all fighting for different things.
Right.
But now they all know, if we don't come together on this, we're all going to lose on this one.
Yeah.
And we're talking that, I think the example was given that a 59-year-old teacher that retired now and under the new plan would lose a total of about $78,000 over the course of their life. That is the difference in some cases, as we're gutting health care, Medicaid and Medicare. That's sometimes the case between life and death on that. Because as you get older, obviously you need more medication, you need to go see the doctor more. And as we gut the health and cut their pensions, that's going to cause a lot of trouble for a lot of people.
It's a serious issue, and very, very serious. And the thing about it too, Eric, is that, and it's not just in Kentucky, but people keep talking about big government, but my goodness, they've been cutting government cuts for years. Our former governor did before Matt Bevin. Our governor before that, they have cut the state payroll. They have cut the services, the programs, and they've also cut the salaries of workers. I know social workers who have college degrees, masters, a lot of them, on food stamps. Now that's a pretty sad state of affairs. And they have not given them raises in 10 years.
I'm going to speak up for my generation for a bit. That's an all too common occurrence. And now that, now I'm getting married, and now my fiance is a school teacher, and I know that she carries around a massive amount of student loan debt. And I carry student loan debt. I'd say the majority of people under the age of 35 have just an extraordinary amount of student loan debt. And linking that back into the pension, that if you're going to require teachers to, within the first 10 years of their career, to go and get a master's degree, which is going to cost $40,000, $50,000 to do, and then you ask them to contribute another 12% or 15% of their monthly pay into a 401k, how is there any assistance to help with those student loan payments? Is there any assistance to offset that? And there hasn't been. It's wages have stagnated, things have gotten more expensive, and more of the pressure of that is being felt by the everyday average Kentuckian and the average worker.
Yeah, yeah. So now how is your program going to rectify that, Eric?
Well, see, that's the million-dollar question. And we think that a lot of this could be solved if we elect people that have skin in the game. And that means we have people, and we have a legislative delegation or people that have signed on or are board members of ours. And I like to use James Kay as the example, who's a Democrat from Woodford 56. And he is advocating for the fight against student loan debt because he has student loan debt.
Yeah.
And we have Jacqueline Coleman is speaking, who's a former candidate in Mercer.
Our county, in our district.
Yeah, and now she's an educator and a principal now, who she is going to talk today on our behalf in a rally in Frankfurt about the pension crisis because she's in the pension system. We need people that come from the walk of life that they talk about. We need doctors to talk about healthcare policy. We need people that are cancer survivors to talk about and run for office to talk about how we need to keep funding research and we can't gut Medicaid and Medicare. We need people that have lived the experience and can tell their own version of the truth. So what we are doing is going across the state and we are finding those people and we are building a network of smart, engaged, connected people so that we can get smart people in a room and talk about how do we fix this. Because we've been trying the same old thing for years, and it obviously hasn't been working. So it's time for new blood in the system. So that's one way we're doing. Another thing we're doing, and something I'm pretty excited about. I'm going to be transitioning from executive director to editor-in-chief of our blog site, and it's going to be, for lack of a better way to explain it, a Kentucky Sports Radio, Huffington Post hybrid. That we're going to be able to get out the news stories that we think people need to be seeing. That it's not just, we're not going to post stories that vilify people, that it's going to be objective, real reporting about real issues, and we're going to break that into as many homes as we can. And the reason why we're doing that is if you have 5-10 minutes, and again, don't do this if you don't absolutely have to, but if you have 5-10 minutes, go home and watch Fox News. And you'll see on the screen when they're talking, whenever Hannity or Tucker Carlson or whoever is up there talking, that they've got the talking points screen right there on the side of the TV, or on the side of the screen. So when you go to work the next day and you're around the coffee pot or you're at the kitchen counter debate with your family, they've got the talking points and they know what to say. And the middle or left doesn't have that. And we hope to bring that to Kentucky. And we expect out of the gate to kind of stumble a little bit, as you know, we're very new. We're getting going, but we hope that this is going to be a way to bring information and arm people with the right tools to win the kitchen counter debate.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. Yes, that's a good idea. Well, you know, people need to know the facts, and I was watching some news last night, and there was some discussion, you know, about an issue, and people, you know, do people really know the facts? No, people don't really know the facts because, you know, you need to fact check, and all of those other whatever sites that give you the real facts. And people don't have time to do all that, you know.
Yeah,
people are working and raising families, and
absolutely,
and they don't have time for all that.
And I'm a political nut, and I know people that are political nuts like me, and sometimes we forget that people don't pay attention to this stuff like we do.
You're right.
You know, we forget that we'll argue over what color tie somebody needs to wear, and then really somebody just wants to know, how does this affect me?
Yeah.
You know, how is this going to make it easier or harder for me to get by?
Yeah.
And that message isn't communicated effectively.
Yeah.
And it stifles the ability to even have a productive conversation about anything when all you get dogma and myth, and you don't have a discussion about what the facts really are.
Yeah.
And my example we can use that just happened recently, that there was a hearing on medical marijuana in Frankfurt. And the information you get from the governor is that there are all these overdose deaths in Colorado, and it's not a viable solution to help generate revenue. Well, none of that's true. Colorado had a surplus of tax revenue come in from this. There have been 0 reported overdoses. But if all you're getting is the information coming from the governor or Fox News or conservative outlets, you would think that that's the case, and when in fact the evidence says it's not. Now, I bring that up just because it's just an example of where we're not giving the correct information and we're not arming people with the data. And that's what we hope to do with the blog site, that we're not going to try to spin you one way or the other. We're not going to try to tell you how to think or how to believe it. We're going to give you the facts. We're going to give you the data. Because we trust people enough and think highly enough of the people of Kentucky that you can make up your own mind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. So what's that blog, what's it going to be?
The blog itself we're calling 120 Proof.
Well, I like that.
Right. I think this would be a good...
That's certainly a Kentucky
Yes, it is.
Name.
We're still working on the URL, on the actual domain of the site. I don't think that we'll call the website that, but the actual blog itself will be 120 Proof Kentucky, which this would be a good part of the state to unveil that. There's a lot of good bourbon down here. 120 obviously based on the counties, and proof, if 120 proof is a stout bourbon.
That's right. I don't think they make it any higher than that.
I don't.
So that's
don't think they
perfect
should.
name. So that
So I'm really looking forward to getting that going. It's going to be a good way for, again, to get information out, but it's also an aspect of it. It's going to be a good entry-level activism for people that a lot of people want to get involved, but maybe they're not good with a clipboard. Excuse me. Maybe they're not good phone banking on the phones, but they're an excellent writer, and they've got a story that needs to be told. For example, there was when we did our tour this summer, I met with a woman in Moorhead who was, I'll call her a veteran of the late 60s, who was an anti-Vietnam War protester and fought for civil rights and things like that. And the type of stuff that people like myself really romanticize and really just think about in terms of, that was the glory days of activism, if that's even a thing. But she was just talking about how I've done this all before. I can't believe I'm having to do this again. I thought I was done. And that's a story that needs to be told, and this website will be an avenue for her to tell her own story. And it'll be a way for people across the state to be able to tell their experience and maybe relate it to a different part of the state. So that, I think, it's a good way for people to find their voice and be able to find their own narrative. In
addition to the pension crisis right now, the health care crisis.
Yes.
And the dismantling of the Affordable Care Act. And, that is of real concern, because I see where the president just passed, the Congress didn't pass get anything passed, but, and I know there are problems, of course, with the Affordable Care Act, but I know lots of people right here in this county who are going to be affected greatly by that, because now they shortened the application time
and
to be able
advertising
to, and they're not advertising. 90% of the advertising fund was taken away from the Affordable Care Act advertising, and in addition to that, there's some problems with some pre-existing conditions, and the prices were going up if you had pre-existing conditions, and the premiums rather, and some things like that the president was able to do without getting a bill passed in Congress. And I don't know what's going to happen with that, if there's going to be a lawsuit on that or not. It could already be.
It just doesn't make any sense.
But it's affecting, thousands and thousands of Kentuckians who, I mean, people that couldn't afford health care before, who now are able to get health care and pay a premium for it, and their monthly premium, and it's terrible, Eric. I'm devastated over this.
And it makes me sick too, because I'm one of those Kentuckians. For all that this new majority talks about trying to benefit small business, well, I'm in a small business, and we're in the nonprofit sector, but we still, I still
you're
need
a
a
business.
paycheck. Yeah, I still get a paycheck. There's still things. We're a business, and we don't have the money to pay for health insurance, and I am able to get health insurance through the Affordable Care Act and through the healthcare exchange. That was wildly successful here in Kentucky, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm in complete and total limbo with that, so I tell everybody I meet, if I know them well, that, hey, if I'm sick and I need to go to the hospital, call me an Uber. Call me a taxi, because I can't afford an ambulance.
Yeah.
Or just let me drive myself, and I'm not going to the doctor unless I'm really sick. But I think it speaks to the disingenuous nature of the debate, that everybody talks about how we need to fix the opiate crisis. I've lost several friends to heroin and opioid overdoses. It hits very close to home. And we talk about how we have to do something about that. We have to do it. Well, their solution to help out is to cut funding for health care. And that is a health care issue.
Which now, under the Affordable Care Act, covered like being able to go into the hospital for treatment services for addiction, alcohol and drug addiction, a 30-day treatment program, which was not covered before with many health insurance plans.
Yes. We treat it as a criminal justice issue, and when in fact it's a healthcare issue.
Yeah.
It's psychological. It's a physical dependence on something, and it's not that hard. It's not like people just grow up thinking that they want to be drug addicts. That's not how it works. I can talk from personal experience. I had a shoulder operation when I was a 16-year-old kid, and I had a prescription to Percocets. You pump those things into a 16-year-old kid whose brain still isn't fully developed, and you pump this stuff into you. It's a hard cycle to break, and it can happen to anybody. At our Ideas Conference in February, Dan Mosley, I was talking about. He's told a story about his wife and her battle with addiction. And he asked the question to the crowd of about 700 people, who in here has been affected by the opiate crisis? Everybody in attendance raised their hand. It affects all of us. It's not a Democrat-Republican issue, but you see this new majority in Frankfort politicize it because it came from the Democrats. This is a Democratic plan, so it can't be any good. So we're going to cut it, and we're going to gut the funding, and our solution to helping the drug crisis is to paint rocks with inspiring messages. That's a solution. It just speaks to the disingenuous nature of the people that are running that party right now. And I don't want to speak ill on all Republicans, because it's not. And people are speaking up, but it is this Americans for Prosperity, this ALEC type of wing of the party that is the poison in our entire system.
Yeah. And they don't, well, then you get into those political action committees that don't even have to say what they are or anything else, and then that's another whole issue.
Yes.
But I do think that people in general want our government working for the people, and we want the Democrats and Republicans and independents all working together.
Right. And
in any other registered
I agree.
organization.
I agree 100%. And just to be on a more positive note, I've been with my job. I've been all over the state doing things like what you're doing now, and talking to different clubs and organizations, and just meeting people from all walks of life, from every background, race, ethnicity, religion, political affiliation, sexual identity, gender identity, and there is a growing sense of that there is this growing feeling of this isn't working, we need to be working together, and we're starting to see it. I think it'll take another election cycle to get through, but
well, that's certainly encouraging. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, and I'm not just saying that just to to boost the organization. It really is. It's inspiring, really, that people are they're proud to see that there are several organizations, not just our own. Emerge is doing great work. Shout out to Blair, but Emerge is doing great work. But there are several organizations like ours that are popping up that are saying, enough is enough. You know, this isn't working. You guys aren't representing us, so we're gonna do the job that you should be doing, and it's starting to take hold.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
It really is encouraging, because I just spoke at the University of Kentucky not too long ago and talked about how being an activist and this kind of stuff, if you're in it for any other reason than something that is you're passionate enough to drive you to action, then you're going to be extremely disappointed, because it's not about money, it's not about glory, fame, anything like that. It's about trying to make a difference, and people are starting to do it. They're starting to wake up.
Well, we better be making a difference, because if we don't, I think we're not going to we're going to, like your friend said that you talked about, who was an activist before, we're going backward instead of forward.
Yes.
And we're not representing the needs of our people, and it's scary. So that's good news.
I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
I think we'll be okay.
And that's encouraging for our younger people, because I think they need to hear that, and they need to get engaged. And so that's good news to hear. But Eric, if anyone would like to contact you to get involved with the new Kentucky project, how can they do that?
The best way, and I guess I'll look to the camera for this, the best way to get involved, you can go to our website at www.newkentuckyproject.com, all spelled out. You can sign up for our email list, you can get updates, or you can email me directly. As of right now, it's the best way to do it. You can get me at Eric, ERIK, at newkentuckyproject.com. That's all spelled out. And we'll find a way to get you involved, whether or not it's your time, your money, whatever. And please donate if you can. But
everybody always needs donations, don't they?
Jared Smith, our treasurer, would kill me if I didn't make a plug for that. So please donate if you can. But your time is just as valuable. And your energy is just as valuable as any treasure you could give us. Yeah,
and they can always find some work to do with you in whatever, or volunteer their time, and and you know, that's always good too. I think, you know, when people can get engaged that way.
Sure.
So that's good news. Yeah. So Eric, I want to thank you for being here today, and that's some very encouraging. Your work is very encouraging, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.